Today I'm going to go over Jumbo. It is, in my opinion, a great quality business and sort of explain to you, not necessarily from a buying perspective, but just to explain to you what are these great characteristics so that you can study it yourself. And there will be a lot of nuances that you'll spot, which is hopefully something you'll be able to see across other companies in the future when looking for such quality businesses yourself. So the business is called Jumbo. Jumbo is a Greek-based company. It is essentially a retail store for family products. This is a whole range of like family household products. It can range from, chessboards to kids' activities, all the way to candles, and essentially the bulk of their products, which is a part of what I believe to be their unique advantage, is the fact that it's small, typically smaller items with very high margins. And I'm going to go over some of the points which have essentially led to their ridiculous results. The results, essentially, for some context and comparison, is a 20% return on invested capital, 20 to 25% return on invested capital. The average business, if they're doing well, they're making about 10% return on invested capital. So ridiculous returns. That's the first thing. Number two, this business is having profit margins of about 20 to about 24% profit margins last time I checked. Net income like margins, that's it. Which is insane, especially for a physical retail store. I mean, most stores I know that I've checked, the highest I've seen is about an 8% net income margin, perhaps a 10-11% net income margin. But a lot of them, like especially for me based in the UK, B&M, which was the highest, was about a 10% net income margin historically, perhaps 11%. And then it went just down from there. It went like Lidl, and those equivalent brands are typically making between 6 to 7% net income margins. Same with Aldi, very similar there. Tesco and Asda, which are massive, they're like the equivalents of almost Walmart. They're making about 3%, 4% net income margins, which are just ridiculously low for a store because it's all about the volume. Well, here you have a store which is doing the volume, and they've got these ridiculously high margins, which are a great buffer in case of a recession or something of sort. So what does a business do to differentiate itself? Well, for one, it has a unique offering in a sense where other stores may do this, but not as its sole focus and not to the extent that Jumbo does it. So what Jumbo does is effectively, number one, its products are very low cost, high margin to sell. So an example might be, for example, plastic pegs or something of a sort where it costs them 20p to produce and they're selling it for £1, or selling it for 20 cents, they're making it, and it's costing them $1 to sell, right? But these products are stuff which is, for example, you might buy on Amazon, but they're very profitable in the sense where you're essentially, if you were to buy it on Amazon for $1, you could make profit off it. The fact that because the product's so cheap, but then you need to pay for delivery costs. Whereas here, there is no delivery cost. There is, yes, the center, but then you're selling like 20 items at once, assuming one person comes in, they might buy 5-10 products in one go, not just one. So that delivery cost is slashed massively. And I believe that's in part where the returns come from. An example of the products they might sell is, for example, a bat play set. So they might have wooden bats with a little ball. That's a play set, and that would realistically only cost about $1 to produce. They're selling it for about $4. Another example might be candles. Again, very high margin products. Lots of little plasticky items, for example, for storage, or little gadgets, which are very useful things, but you wouldn't think about actively going buying them. It's not like, oh, I want to go buy some milk that I need to get. These are very typically much lower margins than these sort of products, and often milk, for example, can be a loss leader, in fact, where they use the price of milk to attract customers to come into the store. So that's something to take into account with as to why this business has done well. They're selling very low ticket, high profit margin items. Now, if you actually want to see what the store looks like without obviously going to Greece, I highly recommend that you go in and open up YouTube or whatever platform it is and just search in Jumbo store walkthrough in Greece, in Cyprus, wherever it is, and something along those lines, and it will come up. And so just to set the scene, where you've got these extremely high profit margins for these products, and when I'm going into the store with my family, the first thing I instantly spot is the fact that they have products for literally everyone, and the things you didn't need, things you didn't know you needed. So what I mean by this is, you walk into the store, the first thing you notice is the islands are very low. So what I mean is that there's loads of boxes everywhere, sort of like metal crates everywhere, and they're all these little own square islands. They're all their own little square islands that you sort of walk past. And as you're going through with your trolley, the aisles are very narrow on purpose, where you can where you're subconsciously, you're walking at a much slower rate, because you don't want to bump into anything. You want to be a bit more cautious. But whilst you're doing that, you're sort of in a trance, because you're looking around at all these other wonderful products they're selling, because it's not just like your one traditional island where you just walk down your one island and then you go up across and into your next island to go through the store very efficiently. What they want you to do rather than here is an experience. They want you to go and view everything they have to offer. And what better way to do it is make the roads very small for your cart to go through. And then as you're doing that, you're essentially browsing and viewing it a leisurely stroll. That's the pace you're going at. And you're essentially looking at this one highly profitable product. You look at it, you stop, you go and look at it. And then perhaps if you're going with a family, you've got kids, or you're going with parents, your cousin, or whoever, right? You're a family outing perhaps, right? You then go to the store, and someone else of another member of your family spots something that they interests them, because again, it's not just for one person. It's designed for like an entire family, for a group of people to sort of stop with their different interests. So they might be the sports section, they might be the like related to working out, like push-ups and stuff like that, related to that, products that can assist with that. And then you might have the section related to school supplies, for example, pens, pencils, generally higher margin products. And then you might have the bit related to your shower gels, your creams, or your like garden accessories that the moms and the dads might like, that like to garden. Then they stop for that, and then before you know it, you've gone through this store and spent an hour and a half stopping at each little station, essentially for one member of your group, of your family, whoever it is, to sort of view this product for like a couple minutes and decide and ah whether they want it. And in the meantime, because the aisles are so low, you're viewing everything else around whilst you're waiting, and you're then looking and seeing if there's anything else there whilst you've stopped. And then once you've done that, you continue your leisurely stroll, because again, the passage isn't too wide, it's narrow, so you have to control your way with the shopping cart. And they just utilize space so immaculately. The first thing about this layout I instantly spotted is the fact that it's in a spiral. So you go in a circular motion around this store, but then once you get to the end, once you get to the end of the circle where you started, you don't finish. You then go up an escalator, which carries your trolley, and then you go on to the next floor and repeat the entire process again up until you get to the end, which I just think is brilliant, because you just spend the amount of time you spend in there and the amount of categories you go through that you would never normally go through is just insane. And these products that they're selling is like the equivalent of like the most like products that you might buy online, where it's like one-off items, where it's actually not that how would I put it? It's not that expensive for the person supplying it, because it's very low cost to produce and very high margins, particularly the plasticky related items, where it could be pegs, it could be garden accessories, it could be mugs and all the other odd sorts of stuff, which are very low ticket. So it feels cheap. It's very psychologically, it plays on you psychologically, because it feels cheap, because each individual item is only it's only £3, it's only $3 here and whatnot. But then once you add up the sum, it becomes a much greater amount, but you don't feel like you've been had at this deal. You feel like you've gotten a good deal at the end of it. So that's that. In terms of the actual experience, it's a very good experience. They've got music in the store, of course. It's standard stuff there. But what they also do in terms of the audio is once you're shopping along and you think, oh, actually, I'm not sure, I might not want this. But what actually happens is in the audio pops up every 15 minutes or so a message saying essentially, look, we now do refunds. And they're basically using that as a selling point as if they've never done that before and as if that's not common practice among stores, which it is for most, to be honest. So you've got now this shop saying that it does refunds. So you think, oh, actually, I might go get it. If I don't want it, I can always return it. But the thing is, because they're selling such low ticket items, unless you have about 5 products you want to return, is it really going to be worth your time driving there and back and remembering to bring it just to drop off the product for $3? Meaning, for most people, it's not worth their time. They may as well have worked for an extra 15 minutes and made that money back. And the second thing is that this store is insanely clever in terms of how they only have returns on select days, meaning that you would not only have to do all that, you would have to remember what days they do returns on and ensure you do it at the right time because it's not always available for you to do, which adds a layer of mental complexity to do it. And I don't fully agree with this tactic, to be honest with you, but it's something they employ, and it essentially keeps the high return rate at bay, which is, I know a lot of, it's sort of like positioned like an online company, which is where a lot of e-commerce businesses sort of struggle with their return rates potentially as it digs into their margins, just because of the nature of these products. They're often quite cheap products that may be have a higher tendency to break or not just be in consumers' tastes. Although I have noticed the products and the design of the products are generally quite good in terms of quality, and as well they're very in favour in season. So a lot of stuff that I might have seen on TikTok is actually appearing in these stores when I do use TikTok for sort of product research and sort of go through what's trending and as part of like quality assessment of the business. But that's a different video. I have posted it somewhere there, so just sort of, I think it's be under something along the lines of like quality analysis of the business or something along those lines. So just make sure to have a search later on if you're interested in that. But the products are generally high quality, they're in demand, and they're very high margin as well. This is sort of what lets them get these 20% net income margins, whereas other businesses 24% net income margins, whereas other businesses are making on average 4 to 6%, which is just, I mean, it's ridiculously low in comparison. So the layout in itself is really efficient. We've sort of talked about how it's psychologically designed. They've used every psychology trick in the book essentially to pull this store off and make this magic work. On top of that, the business itself utilizes space extremely well, where when you go up the escalator on the side, whilst you had that 10 seconds of dead time where you're just going up the stairs are carrying you with your little trolley, you've then have like 10 seconds where you have this thing on the side and it's basically just products that have been shoved in there to sort of maximize the space. And whilst you're bored and you're waiting, you might go, oh, actually, I need those sponges. Again, another very high margin product. And let me just pop them into the cart. And before you know it, you've bought an extra product or two, and that greatly helps their margins. Then the entire trip, you would have noticed after this hour and a half, you've not bought anything to eat or drink. Now, most people, they can't go very long without eating or drinking, so you start to, including a lot of people I know as well, and myself. So you start to, especially after an hour and a half of walking, you start to then get hungry, or you want something to drink really quick. And before you know it, you get to the end finally. You've enjoyed your experience going through it. You got on your 101 things you didn't even know you wanted. And then you go to this store, you go to checkout, and just before you reach the checkout, boom, they release all the food and all the drinks. Just when you're the hungriest and the thirstiest, they release them for you to buy. And then they're selling these products mainly in one pieces. So you can't buy multi-packs. There is no multi-packs, or very little of them. So you can buy a Snickers bar, but you can only buy one. Of course you can buy more, but packets of one. You can't buy packets of 5, 10 like you'll see in other places sort of and get a discount. So you're then spending $50 for one Snickers bar, whereas other stores might charge you $1 for 4, so it works out half the price. But here, no, it doesn't work like that. So then they make even more margin on the food and the drinks that they're selling as one pieces. And to be honest, 50 cents doesn't look too bad I'm sort of converting it from the prices I remember in the store in my head, so it might not all be accurate for you listening in America or the US. And essentially they're able to charge a much higher price on this food and drinks than any other store would if they were selling it in a multi-pack, and they can sort of get away with that. And remember, this store is sort of designed to bring your family along, bring your kids along, bring a group along, and then they're all wanting to buy one, because you can't just buy it for one and not the other, right? I mean, if any of you got kids or any of you know kids, I mean, surely you were kids, right? You would know that if your brother or sister got something, or your friend got something, and how could you not get something as well? So it's just the way it works, and they just really capitalize on this as well. And then you sort of reach the exit and back out you go, essentially. It's a really clever layout, maximizes the space, uses various psychological tricks to sort of enjoy and enhance the experience as well. I'm not complaining about the experience. I did enjoy the experience at the store. I got to see a lot of different products as well, and see the design, see what's in trend as well, and whatnot. It's a very good store. They've been run for several years now. They've gone through not only the financial crisis in 2007, they've also then gone through the crisis that they had independently in Greece at the time, with their own currency. So it was like a double dip recession essentially for that country in that region that they've gone through, and they've come out of it the other end completely fine. Their margins, of course, did go down during that period. However, I believe they were still profitable for most of it, even though their margins were approaching break even at some point. But various other stores who are trading at 3 times who have 3% net income, or 4, 5, 6%, they are very likely to become unprofitable in those periods, and it gives you a large margin of safety. This is why I love the business so much from that sort of business perspective. These factors are all very good. The business is expanding into other countries as well. 20% return on invested capital, like I mentioned, 24% return on invested capital. It's done extremely well, and it's quite a unique offering. I think for the UK viewers anyway, the closest is sort of B&M, which sort of implements this layout where you sort of go through this straight line of just sweets and desserts, and then you sort of branch off into the normal sort of route afterwards. But once you've gone past the dessert section, are you then allowed to go past everything else? So that's sort of a way they've sort of done that, and that's kind of I think the reason why the credit to their 10-11% net income margins, 8-11% net income margins I see in that business. But it's very few people doing it, and I think it's a good moat to have as well, because starting such a large chain of stores like that isn't something easy you can do. It's not. You have to have a lot of capital behind you. It takes a very long time. So you'll be able to see happening in the market if you track that company, if there are other people doing that. The second thing is, it's very, very costly for a business like Aldi. Say these massive supermarkets were to sort of implement and sort of steal their business model a bit. It'd be very difficult for you to then go and essentially attempt to sort of not steal, but just copy essentially their layout, to clone their layout, because you would have to change the entire layout of your store, the way the stands are. Unless you have a way to sort of freely move them, it'd be very difficult to emulate this system. And also, I don't think that other stores have quite the product selection quality, if I'm being honest. They do have good quality selection, but it's not quite as great, and I think they're the things that differentiate themselves. The branding is also on point. It does very well with tourists. I mean, we only found out through a tourist Facebook group, so it does very well. There is like a cult-like following behind this on these Facebook groups, which is again another very strong sign for this brand and business. I think these are the hallmarks of the business. You will see things hopefully in your investing career which are very similar, and hopefully you can pick up from this and apply it to various other segments throughout your career, and sort of pick those high quality businesses and what sort of nuances differentiate them. And I feel that these are the nuances which differentiate the business. The business was founder led, and now it's, I believe, family led, so it also has some of that quality behind it, and a long runway ahead. I believe the business is growing 10-15% a year, so it does have that runway ahead of itself. Anyway, I've gone on enough about Jumbo, and hopefully you've learned a few bits from this video. Thanks for listening.